What's up, guys? We are back at it. Let me make sure the mic is working. It is. All right, cool. We've got a International Legion video here, but it looks like it's like a Canadian unit. I haven't heard of like Canadian only. Shit, I just lost it. I haven't heard of like a Canadian only unit, so
Yeah, I aim my rifle.
this should be interesting. Real quick, my name is Saxon. I went by Vegas in the International Legion. I joined the Legion at the beginning of 2023, January. I'm still in Ukraine, but I'm no longer in the Legion. Before I was in the Legion, I was a firefighter EMT just outside of Fort Worth, Texas. And basically, I'm here in Ukraine trying to make content regarding the Legion and some other cool kind of content that I've got scheduled coming up that will bring some light to the conflict in Ukraine. Hopefully, shed some light on how serious this really is if Putin doesn't get stopped in his tracks. All right, let's move on. I'm rambling.
He looks up at me. Yeah, I aim my rifle. He looks up at me. There's the pure look of shock.
Just felt like some kind of crazy Vietnam War movie scene or something like that.
You see him do this, try this, all the brakes failed.
Yeah, he wasn't slowing down for shit.
I wasn't scared of the artillery anymore. I was just annoyed.
And as soon as it dragged me, boom, more, I think it was Hrad.
Man, what life choices did I make to end up here? Like,
Yeah, one hell of a time.
They're so Canadian.
For going into Avdiivka, we trained a little bit of CQB. We hit the ranges every now and then to keep our weapons zeroed and to practice that repetition of muscle memory and whatnot.
so my role within my squad, I'm a machine gunner with a PKM. So I had to make sure that I had all the ammo for it, which I didn't. I just got the gun the day of. So it was a really last minute, but when they told us, okay, we're 100% going, even though they said it was, 12 hours, 1 day maximum that we'd be staying there, I thought in my head, okay, so, best to bring some extra stuff. So I brought about 3 liters of water in my camelback and put another 2 liters of water in my backpack, some food. Our mission was to basically counterattack the Russians, hold them back.
Curious if this was his first mission. On my first mission, I brought so much shit that I did not need, but you just never know, right? If you're going out there for 24 to 48 hours, what if your evac doesn't come, right? And you've got to stay another shift, another 24, another 48 hours. What if you get assaulted and you've got to fall back and you get basically your MIA. You just you try to prepare for every single circumstance, but the bottom line is I brought way too much shit. It was way too heavy. I could barely move. I was exhausted.
So that the other Ukrainians could pull out of the encirclement.
We were getting ready. Some people were going to zero in their weapons. Other guys were making sure like I was in the drone unit, making sure that the drone equipment was proper and functioning. Don't have this illusion if you're planning to go into a drone unit that, because you're in a drone thing, you're safer because you become a prime target. They throw everything they have at you. I've never seen such big explosions, well, ever, even in movies, from my little experience in Avdiivka.
So this wasn't my first mission. I
Oh,
think I was the only person in the squad at the time of the foreigners who had been in Ukraine previously. I spent some time in Volodar last year. So I kind of knew what to expect with the artillery. I was fairly used to that kind of stuff. So it wasn't anything too new to me, but it was definitely, a lot crazier, a lot more intense than any kind of op I'd been on before.
I have 5 years prior military experience, so a lot of getting ready for coming to Ukraine.
I was very blessed because I was working with a team that already worked in Bakhmut, worked in different areas. So they had experience conducting this kind of thing in the battlefield. I was obviously brand new, so I was learning from them.
We spent months training, months getting ready to go. And, with only a couple hours warning, okay, we're going any moment now.
this is pretty typical. As far as you basically just train. You know you're gonna have an operation coming up. You don't know exactly when. It could be in 2 weeks. It could be in 2 hours. It's whenever the higher command basically gives you the green light. You got to be ready.
The moment you load up into the M113, the door shuts and the ramp closes, and that's when it becomes real. You feel the vehicle move, and it's, yeah, we're going into combat, or we're going into a zone under fire, and yeah, the whole time you're just thinking, like wondering how you're gonna react when that ramp drops, or if you come under contact.
At this point, it was like 3 in the morning, and
By far the most common concern among Legionnaires, I think, especially the ones who had not been in combat before, like even people with 15 years military experience, they may have never seen combat. So the number one concern was always, how am I going to react? You hear all these horror stories about some people freeze up, some people panic, some people, you have no idea. They completely freak out. So I think that gets in your head a little bit. It was definitely in mine, coming from firefighting, EMT. I was tested and proven in high stress circumstances, but not under fire, not under enemy fire. Well, under fire, literally, right? Being a firefighter, but not under enemy incoming. So I see what this guy's saying.
we're thinking, when's this going to start? When's this going to start? We didn't want to be going into the city when it was daylight, because the road going into Avdiivka was getting tighter and tighter, very easy to shoot artillery on it, any other kind of fire support. So it was very...
This is something else I've noticed that pretty common is a lot of these routes that both the Russians and the Ukrainians take to infill and exfil are so mapped out by the opposition, right? So Ukraine knows where Russians are infilling and exfilling when they're doing the rotations and trenches. So literally, like on the clock, they know, hey, it's 7:30. Let's launch some mortars over because they're going to be exfilling. Sometimes it'll hit an armored vehicle during the exfil, and this was common on our exfils. Sometimes I don't even think the enemy saw us. It's pitch black. It's like, 3 a.m. And then just all of a sudden, boom, boom, boom. It's like they didn't know we were fucking... I guess they could have known we were there, thermal drones or night vision drones, but it's just the fact that they've got it so locked down on timing, and reason being is because there's only a limited number of routes that are not completely mined out, completely blown up, destroyed, blocked. So you got to take these routes, or you got to spend weeks clearing a new route.
very risky going in.
Which, while we were driving to location, we were getting hit by, I don't know what it was exactly. It might have been a Dishka or something smaller, but you can hear rounds rattling off of the armor as we were getting closer and closer.
My first experience, my first deployment, first assignment, it was like they mentioned, you couldn't probably count to 5 without having artillery or mortars or bombs or anything going off. It was constant. It was like an orchestra. You just kept going and going and going without stopping. Hrad would just pa 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 pa, singing, getting closer and closer.
From where we get dropped off by the M113, it was about 4 kilometers of walking in. And we're walking on like kind of mud and snow, and it was definitely a little bit of exercise for sure, especially with the machine gun and all the ammo. There is that kind of sense of like, man, what life choices did I make to end up here? Like, what am I doing? Like, coming from safe country, not at war, going out of our way to help another country. It's just, yeah, it's I can understand why some people might call us crazy or whatever. Some people say, oh, you're so courageous, you're so brave. You can say courageous, you can say crazy.
One thing that stuck out to me a lot is the smell of artillery, like all that burnt powder. Kind of smells like rotten eggs a bit, like sulfur. The visuals, a destroyed city where tons of people lived. Yeah, there's nobody there, aside from a few civilians that would stay behind that didn't want to evac. You can hear the jets flying over and dropping massive payloads on positions and whatnot.
And that, I remember We were walking for like half a day, and that was interesting because it was the first time I ever witnessed a glide bomb. I think it was a glide bomb. It was constant jets, constant artillery, constant mortars, but this thing was, it was strange. We're walking back to our vehicle, and then you hear a jet, and then you see this. Like I imagined it in slow motion, but when I talked to the other guys, they're like, it wasn't in slow motion. So it must have been just in my head. But you saw two wings and this thing, and it landed maybe like 30 meters away.
Oh.
20, 30 meters away. And I, like, obviously you drop right away, but at this point I dropped kind of like on my knees and hands because I couldn't stop staring at it because I couldn't believe my eyes that so much soil went up in the sky. My brain couldn't fathom that it could lift that much soil. It was such a big explosion. So I'm like, and I started counting when the soil started raining down, and I counted up to like 5. And then at 5, this big chunk, whatever it was, I don't know if it was a stone or just a big piece of soil, it landed right on my back, on my spine, and it just kind of smushed me to the ground. It was very painful. But then at that moment, that's when everybody was like, hey, let's get out of here.
We had some contact in the day. It was about 10 in the morning. We see some Russians running past the fence in front of us. Bandit and I were holding one room. We're watching the fence line. And Bandit starts shooting. And I'm like, okay, shit, contact, got to react. And I go to shoot my PKM. And then it goes 1 round, jams. And I go to rack it again. 1 round, jams. My PKM turned into a
super common story about the PKMs out there. I never used a PKM, but there was a couple Legionnaires that did, and the exact same story. They said they had to use it like a bolt action rifle.
Fucking bolt action rifle, but like way heavier. So that's a pretty shitty thing to realize when you're getting shot at. Like, okay, great, the most important weapon in the team doesn't work. So I took one of the other guys, swapped out with him. Bandit was shooting back, and I run into another room trying to fix my PKM problem.
Да, у Ланса, значит, не работает пружина, а у второго сейчас прошу. Второй пулеметчик! Да, что у тебя не працюет? Over here!
So I realized, okay, machine gun's useless. I have to do something else because, there's contact. I can't be sitting here screwing around. So what I did is I took some extra grenades, put it in my dump pouch, and I didn't end up throwing any grenades, but I was just sitting there waiting with the grenades because couldn't use my machine gun. If guys had empty magazines, I'd say, throw the magazine over to me. I'll load them all up. So I was just, bombing up guys' mags.
Since it's fucked, give me your spare boxes of ammo and give me empty magazines. And I'll just fucking load up mags, okay?
Eventually, I noticed that the metal was wiggling and started to take a closer look, and 3 Russians were peeling it and pushing one of their men through to fit through. And I took my weapon off safe, put it on automatic. Keep in mind, this is 20 meters in front of me. I aim my rifle, dead center mass. He looks up at me, and there's the pure look of shock, and he grabs the fence like this, puts his feet forward and starts pushing back, but the guys with him, they weren't looking, so they're still pushing him through as he was trying to come back, and I ended up killing all 3 of them there.
But on that first night,
Jesus.
It was like bloody cold. It was only about -3, -5. Yeah, not too cold, but being out there for hours and hours. We're not getting the calories we need, kind of thing. You start getting pretty cold. You get exhausted, staying awake so long. So that's kind of how it was almost every night. Some nights were colder than others.
the priority was to get ammunition loaded on the M113s, and we ended up leaving our bags. And the moment we got to the M113s, we were told, yeah, we're ripping out, load up, we're going. So yeah, we had no extra gear with us, no extra change of clothes or sleeping bags or anything like that.
Holding watch for 2 hours at a time at nights, you know, because we'd switch off, do rotations, make sure guys got rest. And to sit there with the thermal camera, you know, just watching one area for hours and hours, it gets pretty tiring, especially after it's like, you know, day 3, day 4, day 5. It's just mental, physical exhaustion.
There's one day, it was the second day. I had one of my buddies taking an angle, similar angle to the other PKM position in the cellar, but he was just watching over me with he's a marksman, and he had a M16. And anyhow, I guess
quick side story. We did the same rotations, 2-3 hours. You hold a spot. I was in a trench line, so I would just be looking over like the no man's land in between trenches, and you got the thermal monocular or sometimes binos, and you can see. I was just so shocked. I'd never used a thermal. I had in training, but not like in an operation, and I could see the mice in between the trenches moving. I could see small animals and birds with the thermal vision. It was pretty incredible.
Since they couldn't crack my position, they figured they'd send one guy up, and he probably crawled a good 100 meters to my window, and my guy saw him, confirmed with us. We told him, yeah, that's a Russian. And he made it probably 15 meters to our window, and he popped him, killed him. Very lucky to have had my buddy there, because he could have easily just popped up and threw a frag in there or sprayed down the window, and that could have been the end of me, or could have been bad news, right?
I traded out PKMs with another Ukrainian PKM gunner because he got some shrapnel in the arm, so he couldn't use his PKM as effectively. So we switched our weapons. So on about day 2, day 3, I got a functioning PKM. And after moving back a couple houses, he managed to fix my PKM, so it was good to go. And to me, I kind of compare it to ice fishing, you know, standing over a little hole, you know, waiting, and as soon as you blink, fish comes up for air, you're going to miss it. It's the same thing with the Russians. You know, you're sitting there, getting tired, maybe I'll have the gun down. As soon as the gun's down, the time it takes to get it into the shoulder, get a sight picture, they're already gone. Overall, we moved house to house after day 3. We left our first position, we started pulling back a little, and we knew at this point, okay, you know, we're getting surrounded on 3 sides. We have to actually like start moving, otherwise we're going to get completely cut off, completely surrounded. That would be, you know, no good.
Okay. Alright, Ben and I are last guys, okay? Moving. We have friendlies inside.
So we start slowly peeling back, you know, one house at a time. We link up with the other squads, we start pulling back, move to another position, and we move about, you know, 1 or 2 blocks down towards our guys. Stay in another house for about 2 days, you know, just getting shelled, watching out into the yards, you know, seeing, like, looking for any movement. And that's basically how it went for that whole week.
Having a unique perspective of seeing things from above, it's indispensable. Like it is, you see the benefit, and it makes you almost think like how were wars fought without this?
Right.
Because like I mentioned before, you're able to warn your guys as people come in. There was times where you see our guys, our markings in one house, and the next you see the enemy, right? And you see 5 guys or 4 guys. You got to the point where we're literally able to lower ourselves over our guys and look through the window of the enemy and tell them how many there are and what they're planning to do, because they're planning to flank them from the right. So you're able to warn your guys and get them prepared so they can attack, or prepare them so they can counter.
They're calling in our artillery in our position. That was pretty scary, especially not having any roof or a second story, anything to catch any of the rubble that would be coming down, right? Yeah, two shells ended up hitting our building directly. Luckily, everybody was okay, but yeah, it definitely shakes you up a bit. Like, holy shit! Like, is this my time, kind of thing.
The one thing I didn't mention is like I'm Christian, so I had this feeling of protection. I was like, you know, and this is, I guess this happens whether you're Christian or not, but like if you're first deployed, you see these explosions, you see all this going on, but you have this feeling of invincibility. It's almost like, okay, it can happen to him, but it's not going to happen to me. It's almost like this blanket over you. I don't know. I felt that. And then, you know, it's like you can't get touched, but all of a sudden then you get touched. And then okay, I see this is an illusion, because I was walking to go grab the rest of the stuff, and again, normal mood, everything's great. And then there was no whistle this time. There was no whistle. It was just a bang right beside you, and it was. I remember feeling really hot on the side of my leg, and I was like, "Oh man, I think something burned me." And then I looked down, and you just see flesh and material sticking out, and so I realized I got hit. So I dropped, and then because I guess the blood was gushing because it went right through my leg, piece of shrapnel, and that's where the training comes in. This is where the 3AB training is so necessary, and it's so good that they do this rigorous training for so long, because they make it a habit. Like, I couldn't think at that point. So I was yelling out, I'm 300, I'm hit, and I was yelling out a guy's name that wasn't even there. You know, like I was yelling out like Archie or something like that. The guy wasn't even there. It was just in my head was twisted at that point, because I guess I was in shock. But even being in that, the first reaction was drop on my back, take my tourniquet out, and apply the tourniquet immediately. And then as soon as we got to the guys, I see 2 of them come out. They're like, "Where were you?" We're getting hit, man. I'm bleeding out. And they're like, "Oh shit!" So they sprung into action. They dragged me into this place, and as soon as they dragged me, boom! More, I think it was Hrad or whatever at that point, but it was just showered that area. And yeah, the guy, you know, they cut my pant leg off.
From my experience, if whatever ordinance it is made no whistle, made no sound when it was coming down, we came to realize that was usually AGS, one of those automatic grenade launchers, because they made you can hear it when they launch it, and then you won't hear it again until it lands. But with the artillery, you can hear it. You wait, usually you can count it, and then you hear the. So AGS was usually what did not make noise. That's what we realized. Also, I've mentioned this in multiple videos. Massive bleed is the #1 cause of KIAs in this conflict. Massive bleeds. So they train tourniquets backwards and forwards, up and down in your sleep, how to apply a tourniquet. If you know absolutely nothing else and you're heading into this combat zone, know how to apply a tourniquet.
And they saw I had a tourniquet on, and they applied another one because it didn't stop the bleeding. And then I just hear on the radio my call sign, and he's been hit, massive bleeding.
It's also, while I'm on that topic, it's also important to know what cheap Chinese-made tourniquets are and good quality tourniquets are, and how to apply it correctly, right? It's not going to be comfortable. You're probably going to be screaming. It's going to hurt like a mother effer, but you got to stop the blood.
Massive hemorrhaging, arteries been ruptured and all this, and I'm like, oh shit, like I wish I didn't hear that. It's now I'm panicking. Like, is it bad? The guy's like, like, okay, lie to me if you have to. I kept telling him, listen, what's your name? What's the name? What's your like call sign? And he's like, I'm not gonna tell you because I'm cutting off your expensive pants and all your expensive shit. I'm like, I don't care about that, man. I just want to survive. And I'm in pain. I'm clawing at like the ground. And so as soon as, by the way, they put me there, one of the guys went to go get our car because we parked it under cover, under a building, so it wouldn't get blown up. And this is the weird thing. It was like everything's working against you. As soon as we start driving, literally like not even 2-3 seconds go by, you see him do this, try this, all the brakes failed. Like there was no brakes in the car whatsoever, and they functioned up till that second. I'm like, is this there like a higher power or something trying to take my life at this point? Because like nothing's working out right now, right? I wasn't supposed to get hit at that point. I wasn't, all this. But he said, "Fuck it, let's just keep driving." And you can imagine the roads of Avdiivka, like some of these holes you get in, you won't get out. But this man did his job really good. He drove persistently. I'm there. I'm clawing at the friggin' roof of the car because of the pain.
We finally moved out on a boat, I believe day 6, day 7. We were told, okay, that's it. We got to the exfil point.
I thought that he said they moved out on a boat. And then I realized he's Canadian. A boat. 6 days, day 6, day 7. A boat.
The M113s were driving out with guys. And we're all just sitting there, okay, we're done. We're finally going back. And we started getting a little bit relaxed. And then I guess we got the news that the M113s couldn't drive us out anymore. It was too risky. It was too much artillery fire on the road. We had to walk out on foot on an open road, 100+ dudes.
Seen on the Washington Post that the nickname for the road was Road of Death, and couldn't be any more true because, when we started walking out on that road, out to Avdiivka, the Russians definitely had it planned out. Like, that's the main road everybody's going to take. Let's set up our guns and just hone in on that one road. Because, like every 10, 20 meters you'd step, there'd be a shell going off right next to you. One of my my machine gunner got hit.
We had 2 strikes come very, very close to us to the point where my ears were ringing, my head was spinning. So I put my ear protection down. Really glad I did. Because on the 3rd strike, it was so close. It was like I was almost temporarily blinded by the flash. And I'm just like, okay, that one was really close. It didn't really kick into me like that I was hurt. I didn't feel anything, didn't feel any wounds. And I'm like, okay, that one was really close. I look down, I see my PKMs in pieces. Like, it was like almost completely destroyed. And then I see the blood going down my arm, and I go, okay, I'm hit. I yell, "Ya 300," run into the wood line, go to put on a tourniquet. I couldn't because my hand was fucked up. My left arm, like, I guess it sliced some nerve, so I wasn't able to put a tourniquet on. So I got my squad mate, put a tourniquet on me. Pretty funny to me, thinking back on it. The wounds themselves really didn't hurt. I guess because they're just clean, cuts or whatnot. But the tourniquets hurt like a bitch. Those things just tighten on so much. I couldn't use both my arms. It's like I had like noodles for arms. Anytime I had to, get down on the ground, I couldn't get up on my own because I couldn't push up with my arms. So I'd have to get my buddy pick me up and be like, Bandit, pick me up. I can't get up on my own. So he'd like pick me up by the plate carrier, like some child or something. Like I couldn't, get down on the ground normally. I just basically had to, flop down, like just dead weight. You gotta do what you gotta do, but it's pretty funny thinking back on it. Like, oh, yep, I can't even pick myself up, so,
Yeah, from there is just, organized chaos is the best way to put it. We knew what we had to do. We had to keep walking, but explosions going on all around you. It's just, it's pretty nerve-wracking. And that's another time where it's like, okay, is this my time kind of thing?
Once again, I guess I was probably in some kind of state of shock or whatever, but it just felt like some kind of crazy Vietnam War movie scene or something like that. You have, the fields on fire. We have some M113s that are just burning and just shit's blowing up all around us. And we just, there's nothing we could do. We couldn't, hide anywhere. There was almost no cover. So the best thing we could do was just keep walking.
One of the funniest things I've ever seen happened right then and there. We had one of our foreigner guys crawling over, and he ended up sitting on the top of the fence, and the weight from his backpack brought him back. So like imagine like a little kid hanging off monkey bars. He was like that. We ended up getting it under control and pushing him over. But
when your leg goes completely numb, and it's like it hurts more than the actual wound, right? The adrenaline wears off, and then at that point, just pure pain. I couldn't wait to arrive at the evac point because I wanted them to inject me with something just to get this pain to go away, right? And we had to stop. It was like a rolling stop. He shifted all the way down, and remember, he lowers his window, and they're like, "Stop!" He's like, "I can't. I have no brakes." So you just have to like kind of smash into or hit a car, or not a car. It was a tree and a vehicle of some sort. And then yeah, if you got out, they put me right. An ambulance arrived within 5 minutes. First they said, "Oh yeah, he's got an impact wound from the left," and I guess one of the tourniquets was covering the exit hole. So they're like, yeah, he's got like a light thing that went through protrusion from this side. But then they took the tourniquet off because they were doing a conversion, and I see them look at each other because the exit hole is obviously huge compared to the entrance. They see them look at each other, and they're whispering something, and I'm like, I know this is not good. And I'm like, I understand Ukrainian, I was born here. So I'm like, oh, please guys, like, they're like, and I'm looking, and they're doing the packing. We were taught, like normally, like when we were practicing, you make a fist and you pack it with a finger, and you're always keeping the pressure. But I see them use like 2 fingers both times because the whole, so you can fit like a child's hands through my leg. And I see them do that, and the guy's like, "Don't look, just don't look, man." And I see that, and I'm like, holy shit, this is not good. But yeah, sure enough, they did a phenomenal job.
Yeah, I don't know if it was from maybe blood loss or what, but I was just, after I got hit, maybe it was just from like, just mental exhaustion, physical exhaustion, but I just, I had almost no energy left in me. Sometimes the artillery would be way off in the distance, sometimes it'd be close. But at that point, I just, I was so tired, I didn't care. When it got really close to us and we had to get down, I was just laying there, say, okay, it's either going to hit me or it's not, like, just fuck off already. Yeah, it got to a point where I wasn't scared of the artillery anymore. I was just annoyed.
Next thing.
I felt this, and it's a scary feeling. You get so exhausted from moving with so much gear under enemy fire for so long that you become complacent with the danger, right? You're like, yeah, one of these could hit me, but I'm exhausted. Like, I gotta lay here for a minute. I know what he's saying.
Was to find a vehicle.
Also why it's so important to be in the best shape possible if you're going to be in the infantry.
To evac him out of as soon as possible, because last thing I want is my friend to bleed out. And yeah, there'd be M113s and BMPs ripping by us.
These M103s, they were so packed with wounded guys, I guess majority from artillery wounds. They had guys riding on top of the M103s, like on the outside, like something you'd see, like, I don't know, maybe the Soviets in World War II doing with like putting guys on tanks and that kind of stuff. But
my friend needs help, and
I've said this in multiple videos, but that's how we infilled and exfilled, on top of the armor like that, like World War II style, on top of a Sherman tank or something.
got to go to field hospital and get treatment. This happened for quite some time. We ended up walking a few kilometers before getting him evac'd out.
When I was in the M103, I finally got to, we had some light shining down on us. I got to see what was going on. And I realized why I was so exhausted, why I was getting more and more tired, is I was still bleeding. I guess what happened is I asked one of my squad mates for some painkillers. And it was one of those, I think like ibuprofen or something that makes your blood thin out and, run more. So even with the tourniquets on, I was still bleeding out, it turned out. So, I looking down on the floor in the M113, I just see, this pool of blood growing bigger, and I feel myself getting more tired. Like, okay, it's just the realization of, okay, yeah, shit, I might bleed out. So I, lean over to my buddy, because all my tourniquets were gone. I asked him if he has an extra tourniquet. He looks down, sees what's going on, puts one on me. I ended up, I think, with 2 or 3 tourniquets just on one arm.
Jesus.
I think we ended up walking 10 to 11 kilometers, and we eventually got picked up by a BMP.
That kind of an op, especially if it's one of your first, will make you never want to go on an operation again.
The back was full.
Not just because of the chaotic enemy fire, right? That's something that you've typically come to terms with, but when things are that much of a shit show and you have got to walk to different positions like that and you're just absolutely done, exhausted, dead, tired, that'll make you want to take like 3 months off.
Full, so we loaded up on the top. There's already a bunch of Ukrainians loaded up on there, and yeah, it had to have been probably the coldest drive of my life, because yeah, he wasn't slowing down for shit, and yeah, it was a cold night. So imagine, yeah, an hour of cold wind on your face and your wrists where your gloves and your sleeves aren't covering. Yeah, one hell of a time.
Yeah, that was definitely the worst part. Every minute of having those tourniquets on was pretty painful, but, you know, it's either, you know, life over limb kind of thing. It's, you know, accept the pain for a little bit or bleed out. So not much of a choice, really. Ended up at the field hospital right before they were about to do the tourniquet conversion. They're cutting up my uniform, taking everything off. I was thinking, no, my like multi-$100 combat shirt. Oh no, just a horrible feeling. And I guess the last thing I said to the doctor was, "Don't cut off my hands. I like my hands." And you know, I wake up sometime later, just like, what's happened? You know, tourniquets are off. Got some bandaging on. I just, you know, had no idea what was happening. It's pretty strong drugs they put me under with.
I was at the hospital, and I guess my phone and everything just flew out. My phone was broken after. I think shrapnel hit that too, because the screen was shattered. So I didn't have a phone or anything, and it was the first night. It was a woman comes in. There's 4 guys. I was the only one from 3AB in that room, and she says my first, my last name, like yells it out. I'm like, me. She's like, you're from 3AB. I'm like, me. And she's like, you don't have a phone, right? I'm like, no. She's like, I will get you a phone within an hour. Is there anything you want?
Nice.
I'm like, energy drinks and a chocolate bar. That's what I requested at that point. She's like, I'll be back. And sure enough, she came back within the hour with a brand new phone, with a SIM card fully loaded, with energy drinks and chocolate bars. Like these guys take care of every need. It was incredible.
One thing that stuck out to me, taking up a position, is you know, our machine gunner ended up taking a kid's room. It had 2 windows and good vantage point down a street. I remember finding a clone trooper from Star Wars, and remember me as a kid growing up, like, fucking love Star Wars. And then and like his drawings, he had little drawings of soldiers and tanks and jets, and I don't know, it's just crazy to think about and really sad.
It makes you. We had a couple of, or I guess I had a couple of experiences like that where you're in an abandoned home, like where you're, where we're stationed on the front, and you see family photos and all this shit that they didn't have enough time to. The family who lived in that house didn't have enough time to take with them, and it kind of puts things into perspective. Like you're kind of reminded why you're there, right? So it's a sad moment, but it's also a confirmation moment. Like, okay, well, we're doing the right thing here. Despite what these Russian trolls in the comments seem to believe. Anyways, that was badass. That was the International Legion channel. I will link them in the description below. Please like, subscribe, comment, do all that stuff. I found out yesterday that none of these react videos of warfare are monetizable through YouTube, at least. Maybe when we get big enough to where I can have a sponsor, but YouTube will not pay me for any of these videos. But I have so much fun watching them with you guys. I'm going to post them anyways. I love you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow.